Welcome, comrades, to our CPUSA Wisconsin 2026 State Conference. I'm glad you all could make it. For my report today, I want to review the past year with you, examine a few problems we have in our state party, and then take a quick look at what we have ahead of us. So first, in reviewing our year's progress, I want to share with you a little bit about how the first Wisconsin State Committee in 5 years was elected in March 2025. This was thanks to the efforts of our club leaders that came together to form the interim state committee mid-2024 that organized the state structure that we developed. This was leaders from the Driftless Club, Milwaukee Club, which was at the time in formation out of the Driftless Club, as well as the Fox Valley Club. This organization gave us the ability to coordinate statewide activities and share knowledge and support with each other. When we came and had our elections at the last state conference, the leadership that made up the interim state committee were elected to the new state committee, showing the confidence that our state membership had in this process. Around that time, we were also building up our Wisconsin Queer Plus collective. This began in January 2025 as an early project of the developing state organization prior to the state conference that made things official in March. While we weren't sure what we wanted out of the collective at first, we knew it was an important niche, and eventually we did find our stride. While we were originally calling it a collective just on a whim, it did turn out to be a very good choice to call our group that we had, because our collective is not exactly a committee. It's not just a working group dedicated to working on a given project or a specific category of tasks. It's really a collective, as we named it, an organizational body in which the members come together to support each other and collectively advance the aims of the whole group. Through discussions, we realized how inseparable queer issues were from the issues of women and colonized people, and we added those groups and the issues that those groups face into the purview of our collective. At the current moment, unfortunately, it's not really being attended by those outside of Milwaukee, and we really want to make a push to make sure that this collective is there for everyone all around the state, whether they're in Milwaukee or not. We also want to get people not necessarily involved in the party to come and be part of this collective. Anyone that can benefit from being involved in it and is interested. Shortly after we started this new state structure, we encountered a number of difficulties early in the year. This was the early months of the Trump administration still, and was seeing a surge of brutality from ICE across the country. LA in particular was a huge hot zone, as you remember. Here in Wisconsin, we were involved in solidarity efforts, protests, all sorts of things, which supported our efforts to get closer to organizations already present and well established in our areas, as well as just promote the general struggle. This was also tied into the ongoing Palestinian resistance, which had been going on for a while now. This time in particular was critical because Gaza was entering into a famine while aid distribution was run by American mercenaries at the end of his Zionist kill zones. Around this time, the 12-day war happened. This is particularly relevant because we're seeing a resurgence of that right now. The Palestinian struggle, though, I wanted to make very clear, it is at the heart of turning resistance in the U.S. internationalist. However, it can't be the end all. We need to use it to aim people to being against U.S. imperialism by pointing out that U.S. soldiers are just as, if not worse, than IOF soldiers. After all, joining the U.S. military is entirely voluntary. There are too many people in the U.S. that rightfully scorn unapologetic IOF veterans, but will still make excuses for U.S. military veterans that are still proud of their so-called service. Yes, people can change, but if someone is still vocal about being a veteran, they clearly still feel no shame in the fact that they were, at the very least, complicit in the murder of people defending their homes against American invasions. An analogy for this, someone that is, say, cheated on a partner in the past would not advertise themselves as a cheater. There may be certain situations in which it's relevant to bring up that would provide something extra in to the situation, such as when trying to prevent someone else from cheating. But if they truly regretted what they did, they would feel shame to, at the very least, not publicly advertise the fact that they have cheated. The same standard should be held for U.S. military veterans. At the very least, someone that's cheated hasn't been involved in murder. There is a very big problem of so-called anti-imperialist leftists still holding veterans in a special status. Should their veteran status entitle them to healthcare, homes, and other assistance? No. They should be entitled to these things because if they realize what they did was wrong, they're people. And we want all people to have access to these basic needs. Not just those that have gone overseas to do the bidding of our imperialist overlords. Of course, veterans can provide additional perspective when discussing the horrors of American imperialism, but in any other situation, if they truly regretted what they did and felt any real shame at all for their actions, they would not bring it up. Even when talking about imperialism, though, their veteran status does not make their voice more important than anyone else's. Their voices are not the ones to amplify, and they need to be aware when to shut up in these spaces, because even just their presence can be uncomfortable for the victims of U.S. imperialism. And those victims are the voices that we should be amplifying. Along these lines, we also need to push back against people's reactions of Free America from AIPAC or other similar sentiments by pointing out that AIPAC and the Zionist entity are both very much American projects. The Zionist entity is at this point just an extension of American imperialism that is just kept on a very long leash because it is convenient to American imperialism to do so. The biggest donors to AIPAC are American, and AIPAC isn't even the biggest Zionist lobbying org. That would be Christians United for the Zionist entity. It is very important to remember that these struggles that we were facing at the beginning of 2025, the struggle against ICE, the struggle to free Palestine, and the struggle against U.S. imperialism, they have never ended. Resistance against ICE continues. We saw that in January. Palestine is still not yet free, and U.S. imperialism, as we have seen, has only intensified. Moving into the midpoint of the year, we were able to reconnect with our comrades in Shawamagan Bay Club. That club had been inactive for a bit, but those members came back together in early 2025 to begin working on activism around the land usage in the location of the recently closed college. The state committee reconnected with the club, and while efforts were slow, due to the experience that they had in the situation that led to the dissolving of the previous state structure in 2020, we were able to rebuild trust and get them connected with the wider state structure. This would happen over the course of a series of unfortunate events that would come shortly after this, and end up being helpful for navigating our way out of that situation. Around the midpoint of the year, those events that I mentioned started unfolding. And they led to the self-liquidation of the Fox Valley Club. This by no means had to happen. The state committee did everything we could to rectify the situation, despite it being caused by the representative from Fox Valley in the first place. However, the uncooperativeness of that representative, who turns out was the only member of that club, blocked any possibility to do so up until the point that he committed blatant acts of sabotage by deleting the entire digital footprint of the club, effectively self-liquidating the club since it had effectively become just a social media page. As much as it would have been nice to not have to deal with a member of the state committee that was not cooperative, it still resulted in a loss of a member of the state committee, which was not ideal. On top of that, shortly after this fiasco, the representatives of the state committee from the Driftless Club both ended up falling off due to burnout, which would have left the state committee with only its members from the Milwaukee Club being actively involved in its affairs, which is not much of a state committee at all. Fortunately, the process of getting a representative from the Chequamegon Bay Club into the state committee was already underway, and we were able to finish that process, and the state committee was able to remain a true statewide organization. In addition, the Milwaukee Club leaders, who had both originally been in the Driftless Club before the formation of the Milwaukee Club, also began to take responsibility of the Driftless Club, which would eventually lead to the ongoing Driftless revitalization effort. Overall, the mid-2025 shakeup of the state committee was our first major obstacle our new state organization encountered. While we by no means came out unscathed, we did manage to get through it and learn from this experience. You could say we turned bad things into good things. Our state organization is now stronger and more cohesive without wrecker elements constantly getting in the way and acting as obstacles to getting things done. And while the loss of a club is unfortunate, it does provide an opportunity to organize a new Fox Valley Club in the future that is not weighed down by the legacy that resulted in the end of the CPUSA Wisconsin's state organization in 2020 and the attempt to end the CPUSA Wisconsin's new fledgling state organization in 2025. Another important part of 2025 was the growth of the Milwaukee Club. While the Milwaukee Club was founded in 2024, 2025 saw the club take on a pioneering role in the state, as it saw huge successes and progress in its on-the-ground community organizing that can provide an example for other clubs to look to. One aspect of this is Milwaukee's successful community kitchens. These began in February 2025, and we've accumulated plenty of experience in hosting community kitchens since. The community kitchens are a vital part of rooting ourselves in the community and forming connections. And with the experience from 2025, we'll be well equipped to turn it into an even more successful event this year, perhaps even increasing the frequency we hold these by the end of the year. In 2025, we also had our first successful Milwaukee community survey. While we only reached around 35 community members with our survey in 2025, we still learned a lot from the experience and how to conduct surveys, as well as just generally what is important to people. This accumulated experience will now propel us to be able to be even more successful in 2026. There was also the development and spread of our newspaper, Marxism-Milwaukee Monthly, which started in January 2025 as just the Milwaukee Club's newsletter, with some supplementary articles tacked on. This grew over the course of the year to become essentially a newspaper, and then in January 2026, a year after we began the project, we made that change official. To reflect the change, we've made a few changes to the formatting in the newspaper, including changing what used to be known as the What We're Up To section to the Communist Party Milwaukee newsletter section. The club also invites other clubs to join in the work to prepare the newspaper each month, with the option to add sections for each club's own newsletters. With more people putting in the work, we can also eventually make it into a weekly newspaper, perhaps, which would be a very exciting step. In addition, we also increased Wisconsin's involvement on the national level of the party. And this is extremely important because why join a party if you don't want to make use of the connections it offers? Being connected is the whole point of organization, and we can only do things together. With the creation of the state committee and the increasing state level coordination, this connection with the national party has been increasing more than ever. We've held discussion events to keep our membership informed on the general direction of the national party to better represent the views of the state party to the national leadership. We've promoted participation in national events, including the monthly club and district leaders meeting. We've made an effort to promote the weekly rapid responses from the national party, and we've made an effort to get involved in national commissions, essential bodies that contribute to defining our party's positions in the areas that they cover. I myself have been involved in the Women's Equality Commission, and it's been a very rewarding experience where I'm able to participate in discussions on women's and queer issues with a number of people on the national level, being connected with these other people that have a similar interest and similar focus on this work. We're now working on getting involved with the Target boycott campaign as well, which the National Party strongly endorses and has been encouraging clubs and districts to get involved in. Finally, towards the end of 2025, the driftless revitalization effort began. This was the most significant example of the usefulness of a state-level organization. It can help step in and turn things around if a club finds itself faltering. Unlike the situation with the former Fox Valley Club, which rejected integration and cooperation with the wider state and ended up self-liquidating out of spite when it could no longer sustain itself. The Driftless Club has from the beginning sought to cooperate and integrate with the rest of the state, allowing the state organization to be able to step in and prevent it from falling into inactivity when it needed it. This cooperation and integration also helps the state organization recognize that there was an issue in the first place. When the state organization did step in, this effort was welcomed as well, rather than rejected. Along this process, we've seen success and have even begun the Madison Club formation process, much earlier than we expected. While there's been a slow start in other areas, if things were going to be easy, we wouldn't need state involvement in the first place. We just need to keep at it and figure out the kinks. Eventually, we'll be able to get things jump-started and working independently without state involvement. Moving into 2026, the Chequamegon Bay Club's campaign for county supervisor has recently started. Our comrade Elise is running for county supervisor in Ashland County. This will be hopefully one of the first of many campaigns to run communist candidates in our state, and she will be sharing some information on how things are done later today. Remember, while electoralism is not at all the endpoint of where we want people to end up, it is where a lot of people are to start. And running our campaigns and grabbing their attention in the place that they've been trained to think is the only place for politics to exist, and moving them to more advanced forms of struggle is something we can't avoid. Then, in regards to the struggle, There was also the more recent ICE resistance, paired with the Minnesota general strike in January, and some white people were killed by ICE, and suddenly, finally, the whole country was up in arms about it. The general strike in Minnesota was a promising sign of the potential of the working class in this country, though. Every general strike that happens, whether it is a one-day general strike or a indefinite general strike, we need to put in every effort we can to making sure it is as successful as possible. Saying a general strike isn't possible is in fact counterproductive and does create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Historically, general strikes haven't just occurred because the workers were simply organized enough to do so. Of course, organization is important, but these historic general strikes happened because people were angry enough to spontaneously walk off the job, and then organization came after in a lot of cases. Extremely successful day-long general strikes can also be extended indefinitely, as long as people continue not to go to work. The biggest thing we need to do to make sure a general strike is possible is spread the word that it is possible. Get it in people's heads that we can do it and we can shut things down. The success of things in Minnesota earlier this year is proof of that. And while we might have bigger matters on our hands now than just some white people being shot in Minnesota, next general strike, whether it's about Iran, ICE, or Trump's next crazy act, we will be ready. Finally, most recently, we have had our anti-war efforts with Venezuela and now Iran. Trump first gut-punched Venezuela by bombing them and kidnapping their president, while also robbing their country of their oil. This only cut off Cuba from their main energy source. Didn't really accomplish much else. It obviously provided no benefits for the Venezuelan people, unlike what Trump was trying to claim for some reason. It didn't result in profits or power for the Venezuelan compradors, and it didn't even result in any profits for U.S. businesses. Just plain sadistic starvation for Cuba for daring to chart its own destiny. U.S. also secured Venezuelan oil with very convenient timing, almost as if he knew something was going to happen very soon that would plunge the world into an oil crisis. Or at least it would have been convenient if Trump had managed to get any U.S. companies to bite on the contracts he was offering. Perhaps now, though, they will. However, we're in a new crisis, the beginning of a new war in West Asia. We don't know how long it will last. We don't know if the United States will fold tomorrow or if they will try to send troops on the ground to invade. Perhaps even there's been discussion of a draft. Here on the ground, our number one task in this moment is to build the anti-war effort, support and organize anti-war demonstrations, do tabling, flyering, and just generally spread awareness of the war and encourage others to get involved in resisting it. We need to prepare for the possibility of a draft and educate others on how to get out of the military. If you know anyone currently in the military, I'm not going to say anything, but provide resources on how to get out ASAP. Most of all, step up and help out our comrades. Don't just sit there and expect others to tell you what to do. There will always be something for you to do, especially in this moment. And that brings us to things that our party needs to work on. People need to take organizing more seriously. Again, step up and don't rely on others to get stuff done. Be proactive in remembering scheduled activities and help remind others. Know where the next events are listed. One great place to check is the most recent meeting agenda or notes. In addition, don't take the attitude of being an employee of the revolution. It's not like you're at your job where you just serve the capitalists just enough for them to throw you scraps. You're participating in this political work for your very livelihood, your family, and the next generation, so that they can live in a world where the masses of the people can finally be free. So put some heart into it. Another issue that we have is our social media presence. This is a fairly straightforward issue. Comrades have pointed it out a number of times. Our social media presence sucks. Our state Facebook page is really the only page that has regular activity on it, thanks to a comrade that contributes by managing it and making sure things that can be shared are shared. But we need more people involved in keeping our social media active. If you've been in the party for a bit and you're already active on your own social media, volunteer to keep our party social media pages active. Even if you aren't in a position to be representing the party, there are some things you can do to keep our page active. You can keep up to date on the accounts that we follow so that we can share posts from other party pages that would be national, state, districts, other clubs. You can share events from allied orgs. This also helps us to keep up to date on events from these allied orgs that primarily get the word out on events via social media. You can also share People's World articles, either just People's World Zone's social media, or just by posting links to their articles. You can also draft posts, find quotes, find or make your own memes, and then just make sure you get the go-ahead from leadership before you post them. Please let us know if you're able to help. This goes for both club and state accounts. We would really appreciate the help. Another one really quick is we want to increase participation in and awareness of the national rapid responses. This is partially on the state committee to make sure to share these in a timely manner, but also on the membership to actually pay attention and get them done. Even if you don't think that these rapid responses are effective, it takes 30 seconds to just fill out the form to send a letter. So just do it. Letting these people that we send these letters to know that the people are paying attention to what they are doing could tip them over the edge and make them think a little bit, make them pause. If you do the rapid responses, make sure to react to any messages or posts that we make about it so that we know that you have done it and contributed. Final problem I want to talk about before I get to what's next is, unfortunately, the party in Wisconsin is way too white. While this is likely largely to do with the fact that in Wisconsin, the Communist Party hasn't had a significant and prolonged presence in active and on-the-ground community building until just very recently with our recent growth and development. We should still make sure that we're doing self-assessments to be on guard for anything that could create an atmosphere unwelcoming to non-white folks. Our demographics being so white can already just in itself be a red flag to non-white people. So we need to make sure to do everything we can to counteract this and create a welcoming atmosphere. To rectify this problem, our clubs need to make sure to make an effort to get involved in efforts that especially affect Africans, Latinos, and indigenous peoples. An example of that can be the National Target Boycott Campaign. To get started on figuring out what we can do, first we should examine our area thoroughly. Is there a significant African population, such as in Northwest Milwaukee? Is there a significant Latino population, such as in Southwest Milwaukee? Or in more rural areas with lots of migrant agricultural workers? Are there indigenous reservations in your area, such as in the Chequamegon Bay area? From there, we need to examine what our options are and do work in these communities that we've taken a look at. Again, the Target Boycott Campaign is a great way to get started, especially for African and Latino communities. And getting involved with this also helps support the movement nationwide. We should also look at what the community needs and tailor our community organizing and community actions to address those needs. We should look at what groups based in those communities are doing, support them, and form connections with them. Finally, once we've taken a look and made our plans, we need to go out and put those plans into practice. Connect with non-white folks wherever you can, listen to their experiences and needs, and take that experience and re-examine your plans. Rewrite anything that needs to be redone, and just listen to people. The people that live in a community know what is best for the community. An additional note that I want to make sure that we are clear on, it is also important to avoid recruiting events that are just going to get you more white people. Comrades who happen to be white can find us on their own. The best of them will also be more drawn when we do recruiting or other events that are focused on non-white people or a mixed audience. And if you think that recruiting in majority white areas is easier, that's crazy, and you're clearly doing things wrong. While there can be some good comrades that happen to be white, on average, white people will be far more privileged and comfortable. They're much closer to the levers of power, and by all means, they should be more difficult to recruit. When they are recruited, they will be less motivated to actually step outside their comfort zone to contribute to the struggle. Comparatively, the only real barriers to recruiting Africans, Latinos, and indigenous peoples is our current demographics, that being, frankly, way too white, and also the lack of trust that these communities might have in general to an unfamiliar organization due to being burned by outsiders and other unfamiliar organizations in the past. Both these issues are issues that we need to break through. Not doing so would completely compromise our place in the struggle. And now we can take a look at the year ahead. As we move forward, do not forget about Palestine. People are still starving. Zionist occupiers are still occupying Palestine. We also can't forget about Cuba and Venezuela. Maduro and his wife are still in jail in the US, and the trial is being dragged out as long as possible. Venezuela itself is still not out of the sights of the US imperialists yet, and Cuba is currently starving and having blackouts. In regards to the Iran war, we need to maintain revolutionary defeatism. We need to operate under the assumption that this war will eventually create revolutionary conditions. Of course, if it ends earlier, great. I'd be happy for the people of Iran to no longer have to suffer American and Zionist bombings. However, if it does create revolutionary conditions and we aren't ready to act on it when they come, we will have let the whole world down. So we have no choice but to be ready. We need to put everything we have into it right now and get moving. For the final time, I will mention the target boycott. Again, this is a very useful tool for solving the demographics problem we have in the party in Wisconsin. It's also great for forming connections and coalitions with other organizations in our areas. And unlike what the corporate news is trying to spread about the boycott, this boycott is still very much alive and kicking. It's up to us, the people, to push back and make the second year of the boycott even more successful than the first. We also want to stress the importance of revolutionary education and invite people to Milwaukee's reading groups. In line with Resolution 4, which will be discussed and voted on later in this conference, we would like to see the educational program organized by the Milwaukee Club be expanded statewide. As Comrade Daniel, the brilliant mind behind the Sickle and the Hammer podcast, will point out in his presentation later today, revolutionary education is extremely important. We will be working on organizing a more robust education program this year, and I expect every single one of you to make as much use of it as you possibly can. To start, please join the Milwaukee Club for our twice monthly reading groups every second and fourth Tuesday from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. If you're doing something, just pop in some earbuds and listen, at least. If you haven't read anything, that's fine. We read everything we discuss in the reading groups themselves. Just come and get what you can out of it. Consistent learning, even if it's just a little bit, is always better than learning a whole bunch at once, and infinitely better than not learning anything at all. Over this next year, we also will want to be getting our state finances figured out. This will require more people to step up and take the initiative in various projects, so that I and other members of the state committee can take a step back to focus on getting sorted through the various legal code to understand what's required of us to get our finances organized. We also want to spread the Marxism-Milwaukee monthly newspaper statewide. When it becomes statewide, we can call it something like Wisconsin Monthly Worker or Wisconsin Weekly Worker. Other clubs can prepare sections as newsletters for their clubs, similar to the current Communist Party of Milwaukee newsletter section. People from other clubs should begin working with the Milwaukee Club on prepping the newspaper in preparation for it becoming statewide. And finally, we need to finish out and meet the goals of our plan of work. This is the final year in our current 2-year plan of work that we started at our last state conference. We'll be looking at it again in Resolution 1 coming up. So let's have all hands on deck for this final year and do everything we can to meet the goals outlined in that plan of work. With that said, comrades, thank you so much for being here, and let's have a great conference.